was. We don't have today we don't have the rats running across our feet, do we, Jack? So it had some personality back in the day. So it was quite a place. But as usual, every time we get together, we want to give you a real quick update on transportation. We know that transportation is a top priority for all of our citizens. And probably a year and a half ago, we started sort of making sure that we gave you updates. And there's always some little tweaking update that happens related to our road projects. And we're all working really hard to keep these projects on track. And nobody's working harder than our deputy town manager, Wayne Heron. He's a great guy doing a great job. Give Wayne a hand. But just let me say, if any of these projects get off track, it's Wayne's fault. Just saying. But Wayne's going to walk us through that tonight, and we'll do it pretty quickly and get on to talking about the great history that's going on right here in the town of Cornelius and back further. People were asking me a little bit ago, what was it called back then before Cornelius? Well, Jack's going to tell you, aren't you, Jack? He can take you right on back there. So, but let's talk about transportation, and I'll be back with you in a couple minutes.
Hello, how is everybody? Good deal. Well, I'm going to be quick on this. Lynn, I don't know if there it is, but as the PowerPoint comes up, I will tell you, and I'm going to talk real quick. We got 13 DOT projects scheduled for starting in the next 3 to 4 years. I tell everybody, once everything's done, you're not going to know how to feel because we're going to have so much capacity and you'll be able to drive around so freely. I mean, that's all we talk about is how we can't get from point A to point B. Actually, I just left town hall at 6 o'clock and just got here. So that's
I know we're not proud of that.
Tell me about it. Let's roll through these. So that's the 13 projects. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of Tyler's. Bailey 115. If you hadn't been through that intersection lately, town just finished improvements. It's wonderful. A lot more capacity. You got it. Thanks to Tyler. Next intersection. 2022. Tyler's got Jim Street. He's working on Jim Street. If right now, the only way to get from 115 over to 21 is on Catawba or to drive down to Huntersville. So we're trying to give a circuitous route to come down Hickory Street, Jim, down School, and over to Nanny Potts. Now, we only want you guys to know about it. So only folks here in Cornelius will use it. So all the other people coming through Cornelius will stay on Catawba. So only we will be able to get through in a timely fashion. Next slide. Jim Street, the contractor's expected to start this month. Matter of fact, they're already doing surveys. So they're on their way. That project's going. Next slide. 2023, next year. Let's keep going. 21 Catawba. Dual roundabouts. They've already acquired all the right of way. They're going to start utility relocation this year. So DOT is set to let the contract this December. Contractor will probably start in March, April of next year. This is not a big one. This will take them less than a year to do. Get those roundabouts in there. They'll check the timing at the intersection. Eventually, there'll be an elimination of some left turns, which will make that work better. So that will be done next year. Next slide. North Cross Drive extension. Now, this will be a pretty good one because it won't affect any traffic. You won't even see it. It'll start, it'll finish, and by the time it's done, you'll be able to drive north-south. You'll be able to pick up at a roundabout on Westmoreland, go all the way down to Burkdale. So that'll be a nice north-south connector, so you don't have to use West Catawba or 77 or 21. The reason it takes 2 years, it's got to cross the McDowell Creek and the McDowell Creek Greenway. They got to put a big culvert in there, but that one will go pretty quick. Next slide. Torrence Chapel. This is the other end of the diverging diamond. 3 roundabouts. When all said and done, we're going to have, I think I counted 7 roundabouts. So I heard one of our commissioners say the other night, if you don't know how to use a roundabout, go to Davidson, start practicing. So we're going to get 3 of them out at Torrence Chapel. One thing that we are going to talk about coming up probably late May, early June is when do we want to eliminate the left turns? Now, a lot of people say we don't. And there's a possibility, the way the agreement is worded with DOT, they don't eliminate the left turns until there's 15% growth in traffic. If we get the exit 27 ramps down at Westmoreland, we may never reach the 15% threshold. So those left turns may never go away. So that's one thing that we're looking at and we'll look at in the future. But that project is scheduled to start in spring of 23. They've already acquired the right of way. The last right of way was Miss Robinette. Me and the mayor talked to her several times. That's the Whiny Wally family. So they finally, I saw them out there. They had a backhoe picking up rocks that the family had put out there. So glad that that was able to get squared away. Family, I think, is happy. So they'll start utility relocations and that project will start in 23. Next slide. 115 right up here at Pot Street. The only thing bad for us is if we're trying to turn into the YMCA. Coming out, you come into Cornelius, we're good. But people want me to care about people who live in Davidson turning left. I do kind of. So we want them to be safe. In order for them to be safe, we're going to have this roundabout. So you'll be able to go round the roundabout, get into the YMCA, come out of the YMCA, get in the roundabout, whether you want to go to Davidson or come to Cornelius, either way. Also, right-of-way is already acquired. They're doing utility relocates this year. That'll start early 23 as well. A lot of stuff starting in early 23. So you're going to see a lot of orange barrels, ask for a lot of patience. Once it's all done, it'll be great. Next slide. Bailey Road Extension. I know this is hard to see, but what this does, if you know where the sharp curve is in Bailey, this will punch you right out to 21. So you don't have to drive up through Oakhurst and by 131 Main and the old Cowboy. I don't remember what it is now. Waterman. Is it good? Oh, good. So this will take you straight out to 21. This will open up that industrial corridor. Great way to get across going to Huff High School actually too. So that'll be good. Next slide. I-77 shoulder hardening. A lot of people don't know about this, but if you've been to some other states, my wife and I just went to Hawaii and saw it out there. They allow people to drive on the shoulder during peak times. And I thought, well, how does that work? Well, I saw it firsthand. It does work. Now, somebody said, well, how do you enforce that? Well, it's kind of, you just hope people do the right thing. Well, I noticed like at 9:30, people quit driving over there. And I thought, wow, they're just doing it on their own, but it worked. And it was great, the capacity that it added during rush hour. They're going to do that here. They're going to do it from exit 18 all the way up to 36. So if you're coming off 25 and you're going to 28, you don't have to get in the general purpose lanes. You can just stay on the shoulder, hit right up to our exit. Next slide. 2024. Hickory Street intersection. This is one we're pushing to get moved up because, as everybody knows, it's just a signal. Now, you say, well, how hard can that be? Well, you do have to buy some right of way. You do have to do, there's got to be a preemption for the fire department. We got to do the signal the right way. So there's a little bit more that goes into it, but still we think that can be pushed up. But right now it's 2024. They're doing the design work now. If you like going to public meetings, there's a public meeting on this on Monday, the 25th. So we're asking anybody who's interested, come out and let us know what you think about it. Next slide. West Catawba Phase 2. This is the big one. It's scheduled to start in 24 and go to 27. We've been wanting this one for a long time, but the reason this one is out a little bit, now most of you know about DOT's financial troubles. Back 3 years ago, they had to shut everything down because they basically almost got down to zero cash. So now they've started back up. The problem is this project is over 50 million. It's hard for them to get that money back, get it going. So they're looking to start this one in 24. The good thing is there's still money in there to buy right away. So they're still buying right away now. Next slide. 25 and beyond, Highway 21. We hope to get that pushed up with the influence of Atrium, because as you know, Atrium bought where Tenders is. Somebody asked me the other day, are you going to shut the chicken place down? Not me, Atrium, but Tenders does have another site and it's going to become PDQ. But Atrium's going in there and they're going to help us push 21 up on the list. And we're really hoping for that. Next slide. 73, this isn't Cornelius, but I like to tell people because we all drive on 73, 3 sections that are going to affect us. Beatty's Ford to West Catawba down to North Cross, and then from 115 out to Cabarrus County line. All three of those widening projects are going to start in 27. They all three will benefit us. Next slide. Next slide. That's it.
Good job. Good
Thanks.
job. I know that probably created some questions for you guys. Wayne will be around afterwards, and so please save your questions and find him. He'll be close by, and any of our staff can help you with that. So before we get into our topic of the evening, I want to make sure I identify all of our elected officials that are here tonight. And so it's a great crowd. I'm not sure I can pick you all out. So let me see if I can see y'all. To my left, Commissioner Mike Osborne, right here, and on around, Commissioner Colin Furcht, and on around, let's see, I know we go, Commissioner Sansbury. Yeah, oh, I went right by you. I'm sorry. I love you, man. And Commissioner Dennis Bilodeau. Yes. Yes. Okay. Did I miss anybody? Any of our commissioners? They're out supporting this event big time tonight. And thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Greatly appreciate it, particularly on this topic. Now I want to introduce our staff members, our key department managers mainly. So Manager Andrew Grant's right over here. Assistant Manager Tyler Beardsley. You met Mr. Heron a minute ago. We've got Chris Lee, Matt IT, Maylin Joyner, who is our communications director. And I know I missed some staff here. Julie Niswanger, who is our finance director. Very important lady. Y'all need to get to know Julie. She knows what's going on with our finance. Gosh, did I miss anybody, Andrew? Oh, Major Bockham is right here. We've got the whole fire department back here. So, and John DeKemper. Yeah, John's representing Parks and Rec here tonight. So that's our staff, great staff, and thank you all for your support tonight. So with that, I want to leave plenty of time to talk about not what's going on now, but what went on many years ago to get us where we are today. I've been around in this town quite a while, like all my life. So you just got to go look up Larry Riggs back here can tell you how old I am, but he's not going to tell because I'll tell how old he is. But anyway, go back a long way with this town. It's very, very different back in the day. When Jack and I were growing up here, how many people did we have, Jack? 1,500, 1,400, 1,200. The list goes down. So, you know, comparing that to our 33,000+ people that's in this town now, we've come a long way. You know, I went to an event this morning that, and here was one of the stars, Abigail Jennings was one of the stars of that show. It was a wonderful, I guess, review of ways that we can preserve our history. Once you get to this point in time, you know, the past becomes that much more important to recognize and to identify it and talk about the good points that really went into this big melting pot to create what we are today. Most of the people that live in Cornelius today didn't grow up here. But let me ask you, how many natives we got in the room? I like that. Natives in the room. But that's all of them. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. But there again, our community's changed tremendously. And I think in a good way. It's part of what we do. You know, I've always said if we aren't growing a little bit, we're probably dying, and that's not a good alternative. So anyway, we have come a long way, and but we want to do some good planning to identify this great and rich past. I want to also make sure I recognize the chairperson of our Cornelius Preservation Committee, and that's Jess Boyer right here. Jess, thank you. And other members of the Historic Preservation Committee, raise your hand. I know a lot of you are here tonight. So you want to introduce them, Jess?
Hey, everybody. We have Kyle Scharf here tonight and Mary Phelan. So there are other members. I think we have 2 more coming to attend, so we're very pleased to be here. Thank you.
It's a great group. We have expanded that group in the last recent while in order to, I guess, accentuate the importance of our historic preservation, because folks, it's getting away from us. Don't you agree, Jack? It's really getting away from us, and we've got to do a better job in restoring it and bringing it back so we can at least identify it and relate to what brought us to the dance here. But one of the key guys that can make you really, really interested in what went on way back when is Jackie Conard. I call him Jackie because that's what he grew up as. So what a great guy. Many of you know Jack and probably met him over at the Old Town Public House. He hangs over there a lot. It's just a good place for him to gather and see a lot of folks and talk to a lot of our old timers that have been around forever. So he loves doing that, and appreciate him coming out tonight. He's got some pictures behind us that he'll tell you about. If you haven't ever been to Jack's house, which is right beside the Habitat store, it is a treat. I mean, I can walk in there and it's like a family reunion for me with all the pictures he's got and all the books. He's got thousands and thousands. And he is an integral, very, very integral part of our history for sure. So he's got some comments he'd like to make to you guys and kind of update you a little bit about what has gone on in our past. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to him, and we'll talk back and forth and, just have a good dialogue. This isn't too serious. I mean, this isn't a formal presentation. I just want to have a good open conversation. If you got questions for Jack or for me or anybody related to the history, Abigail Jennings is our resident expert on a lot of history. She's doing a lot of great things in the preservation arena right now. So, just speak up and ask. Let's talk to each other. And as we get into the preservation, we'll talk about an idea, if you will, that I've heard a lot about from many of our citizens. And I'm going to take it on as a challenge, as long as Jack agrees with that. So anyway, we'll tell you about that as we move in the program. But first of all, Jack, where would you like him? Okay, can he sit? Okay, he doesn't need to sit. All right. Right. Is he on here, Chris? Hello? Let's check it out here. He's not. Now you are.
Hello, everybody. Of you that don't know me, I'm Jack Conard Jr. I live on North Main Street. I've been here for 75 years and spent most of my first 12 years in Cornelius. Went to Cornelius Elementary and went to Cornelius Presbyterian Church. And we moved to Charlotte in 1960. And my dad worked for Urban Construction. We lived in Charlotte for 5 years, and I went to South Neck High School, but both my grandmothers lived in Cornelius, so I was here a lot during that time. But when I went in the Navy in 1966, Mom and Dad bought my grandmother's house on Church Street, and my mom lived there for 93 years, was born there. But when my grandmother and her brother died in 1987, Mama inherited my great granddaddy's house on North Main Street. And I moved back here in 1989 and have lived here for 30 years since then. And moving back here, Mom had several cousins that were 20 years older than her. So I started visiting the oldest residents in town and copying all their pictures and writing down all their stories. So I've been doing that for 30 years. This is a little accumulation of thousands and thousands of pictures and stories I've collected. And this board is a few of the pictures. This picture right here is a picture of my house in 1910. I just saw it a little later right here. But Houston Hall bought that house in 1905, the same year the town was founded, for a house and acre of land for $300. And the taxes now are $1,700 a year. So it's increased a little bit, but I promised all the old people I've visited over the years that they would never be forgotten. So a lot of these pictures are ones they let me copy. But almost all of the residents are gone now, the old time residents. So Frank Washam told me many years ago, he was born in 1905. He said, someday you'll be the old guy everybody's coming to see. So that's happening.
And I will tell you, in addition to that, Frank Washam's house just got beautifully restored on Washam Potts Road. So I can't tell you the address, but that was a good example of a wonderful restoration on Washam Potts. Go ahead, Jack.
I can answer any questions about any of these pictures or tell you some more stories about the old days. Mama lived on Robbins Hill on Church Street for 93 years. And her brother, J. Bird Robbins, was a character around town among many. That my great granddaddy, or my granddaddy, was pushed a dope wagon in the cotton mill and sold a dope wagon. He sold snacks and cigarettes.
We need to clear that up a little bit.
Coca-Cola in the old days had some other stuff in it. So, but I've enjoyed living back in Cornelius and enjoyed seeing it change. Cornelius was pretty dead in the 70s. If you were here after dark, you couldn't even buy gas. But we had one restaurant called the Ham and Egg out on the interstate, where it was the only place open at night. But it's changed a little bit now. So it's nice to have all the new people around, and all the restaurants and stuff to do, and music. And Case and Jessica both brought life to downtown with the Old Town Public House. And so I enjoy now just hanging around downtown and hearing good music, and meeting new people. And if there's any questions about any of these pictures, I'll be glad to answer them. But
So let's talk about a couple of things, Jack,
Okay.
about our town in the past. So we had a bank here, didn't we?
yeah,
Tell
Bank
us
of
about that
Cornelius.
bank. Hear that? Bank of Cornelius. It wasn't a big bank, but
In fact, this picture right here is Woody's mama in the bank.
yeah,
Bank
be
of
sure and come up and see
Cornelius
my
right up
mom.
there. The Ix Cotton Mill, before that, the Cornelius Cotton Mill was right where Food Line is. And it took up the whole town in the early days. And my other granddaddy, Conard, worked at the Jim Yarn Mill for all of his life, as long as he could walk. And a lot of the people here called themselves lint heads from those days. Because my grandmother was a weaver in the cotton mill all her life. So that's and she made her own clothes from the time she was 14 years old.
So tell us about how many stoplights we had in Cornelius back then.
One. There's a picture of it on this board. I'll show you later. But there was a row of buildings right across from the Quick Stop. It was called Brick Road. And that's where Potts Barbershop started. That's where Cheryl had his jewelry store. That's where the town post office was. And then later the town post office was right next door to here. And you could cross the tracks right here. And there was a lady that, the man that had the movie here was named Zolly Coffer Thompson. And he had a daughter that was a little, I don't know the right word.
Bit of special needs.
Yeah.
That's right.
But she would come up behind everybody in the post office and grab them and squeeze them real tight. And I was scared to death of her when I was a kid. But,
And you needed to be.
uh,
We all were.
but I have not found a picture of her, but I do have pictures on the board of Zolly Coffer Thompson and his wife. And long before that, it was Mayor Alex Little had a hardware store in this building. I think it closed during the Depression, but
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So a couple folks I want to,
go ahead.
they
Sarah.
don't know I'm going to do this, but
Sarah's over there.
I just want some comments from the audience. So Dale Ridlin, come up here just a minute. Okay, just come up here just a minute. You got any stories that you can tell about the real old town Cornelius? Tell them about you first. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up on the, down to the Y. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm not used to these kind of things. Yeah, going down to the Y, Davidson Street, born and raised right there. Lived there forever. My mom just passed away in 2012. And his name was Julian, not Zollikoff. His name was Julian. Do you know where Zollikoff came from?
Mm-mm.
He had a store over in Denver that he called Zollikoffers. That's where Zollikoffer came from. Julian was a really good guy. You'd never see him without a big cigar in his mouth. His wife ran a ticket booth. He ran the thing upstairs, the projector. And you never saw Betty much, not because, shucks, I came down here every Friday night. Cost you $0.25 to get in. The Star Theater had an awning out there, overhang, that had Star Theater. And the other thing was there were no bathrooms. If you wanted to go to the bathroom, you go out the door, check with Ms. Thompson on the way out, line up against the building, side of the building here. That's the only thing you had was that. But as far as this goes, well, I came in here and I told Wood, I said, this doesn't look anything like it used to when I was coming in here.
Looks a lot better, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it looks a lot better. Now, of course, this is relating back to years ago. The balcony was where the African-American people came in. There was a staircase over here in the corner, went straight up there. And they had, their seating was upstairs. And had one big wood stove right down in the corner on the right, down here on the right. And you can see the rats running around from time to time. I told Wood, I said, do you want me to bring my 22 when I go down there?
Cleaned it up.
Yeah.
So, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dale. Let's give him a hand.
Dale
So-
is the only person here older than me, I think.
So Jack, I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of the Smithfield community to our history here in Cornelius, from your perspective. Talk about that just a little bit.
Okay. I used to ask my granddaddy to take me walking, and he would walk me till I collapsed. And we would always go down Church Street and behind all the buildings, all the houses on Church Street, and go cut up through the woods to Smithville. And they were building the bypass 21 highway then. And,
This was prior to 77, by
yeah,
the way.
this is when the US bypass 21 went in 50s. And John Harwell had a store in Smithville where we would stop. And my granddaddy had worked at the cotton mill and haul stuff in his old truck. And he used to pick up people at Smithville and take them to Torrence Chapel Church on Sundays. And he would sit in the trunk and drink moonshine while they were at church. And everybody sat in straight chairs in the back of his old flatbed truck. And then he would take them all back to Smithville. But we all had friends that played baseball at the old ballpark where Smithville Park is now. And a lady named Rosie Burton used to take care of us when we were kids. It was Toots Burton's sister. And they actually grew up on a farm where Buck Knox lived that was actually set where the Peninsula Golf Club is now. But they had tenants, and Miriam Wisnett had tenant houses down on behind Mount Zion Church on their land down there,
That's the Potts Plantation, by the way.
where several people grew up down there, and we were all friends as kids and rode our bicycles all over town all the time. Even ventured to Davison occasionally, but that's about all I had to say
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, tell us about Antiquities. Big old field, wasn't it?
Jim Bumgarner had a 250 acre cow pasture, cow farm where Antiquity is. And my mom rented 33 acres over there for 30 years for $20 a month to keep her horses in. And the creek down behind the swimming pool at Antiquity is where the horses could get down to the creek to drink water. So we put a little electric fence around the place down there and had a picnic table down there. And sat down there many times and watched the full moon come up over the pasture. And now there's so many buildings in Antiquity, you can't see the full moon come up anymore. But it's we told there was a black lady used to ride her wheelchair around in an Antiquity with all her grandkids on her, riding on it. And we told her that all of Mama's horses and dogs and all Jim's cows were buried under her condo. And she said, I don't think I can sleep anymore at night. And I told her later it was 30 feet under, they moved 30 feet of dirt in there to cover all of that up. So I don't think it's any threat to anybody now. But,
Yeah. So let me go to any of our natives have anything they want to add, you're welcome. But I'm gonna go to Susie Sossman Inman right here next. You knew I was gonna do that. She was a little after Dale and Jackie and me, and just a little bit. But she remembers Cornelius back in the day, and I'm gonna give her an opportunity to say a couple of things.
Okay, thank you. I keep looking at this board, and one of my favorite things that we had of all time was a carnival. And the carnival was over where, if you know where the Legion field is, or Legion Park, that's where the carnival was. And I thought that was the biggest thing there ever was. It came in one day, and then it stayed a week. Wasn't it a week? It stayed a week, and they had every ride. They had the merry-go-round and
the first week in August.
the first week in August. And it was, and I remember my dad would say, put your bicycles away, the carnival people's coming. And we'd put our bikes away, and we'd go, a couple times a week. And my great uncle, which we live in the house he built, he was, and your dad, they sold tickets. And because my dad would always tell Woody's dad, he'd say, oh, there's a monkey in a cage over here. I remember that. He would always tell Woody's dad that. But that was one of my best memories, was the carnival. I just loved it. It was real good. But it's changed a lot, and it's good. It's good. We've got a lot of nice things, and we just need to keep the history and try to remember where we came from.
Yeah, Jack, tell us about the Tree of Knowledge. We can't leave that out.
Okay, there was a big oak tree in the parking lot of the Quick Stop right up here. right across from the,
Town hall, wasn't it?
no, right across from Ewan's drugstore, which was on the corner that's empty now. But, there was a bench around that tree. And, I told you, my granddaddy took me walking. We would always end up at that tree. And there was always, 10 or 15 men, sitting around it, talking politics and, whistling at ladies that went by. And, my mom said that she used to walk 4 blocks out of her way to go around going by there.
They didn't drink any beer there, they did, Jack.
No, this was in the daytime, but Mike Knox that waves at everybody said they were hauling hay. Mose Cook was pulling his tractor, was pulling a trailer load of hay.
And Mose Cook owned the farm where, where Atrium is getting ready to go. That's Mose Cook.
Yeah, down across from 131 Main. And Mike said they had piled a bunch of hay up on the trailer and he was sitting on top of it going to put it in the barn with Jim Bumgarner's. And then when they went by there, he yelled, "Hey, granddaddy." And everybody sitting there waved at him. And when he got down there, Mose told him, he said, "Everybody that sits there is a granddaddy." There's a picture on the wall of
Well, yeah, be sure and look at the tree. And I'm just telling you, if it wasn't known at that tree, it was not happening in Cornelius. They ruled. They ruled. They ran the town, didn't they? Tree of
Tree of
knowledge.
Knowledge.
Tree of
My
knowledge.
granddaddy and Duke Deaton.
All night long.
My granddaddy and Duke Deaton fought about politics there every day for as long as they lived. And Duke Deaton had a little house over where Marvin lived on what was Field Street in the old days. It's part of antiquity now. There's a little piece of it left at the end down there past the swimming pool. But Mr. Long had a big, Mr. Long lived in the house. There was a big 2-story house right beside the Quick Stop, right beside where Miss Keiser lived, the brick house that was a restaurant. And the Cashins bought it and moved it back to Oak Street, and that is their office now. But Mr. Long had a big mean dog, and Duke Deaton was out in his yard one day and he saw that dog running across the yard with one of his chickens. And he said, I had to call up Mr. Long, said, "I shot at your dog to scare him, but I killed him." So, and Mr. Long said, I can't repeat what he said. He said, really, there was lots of funny stories today. Everybody told about everybody, and everybody pranks people pulled on each other in the cotton mill. It was a fun time growing up, hearing all those stories. But there's so many of them, I can't even remember them all.
And you know, one element of our history here, and I'll say this, and we're going to move on to the idea. Come on through, Dr. Mike. I know you do. Is our churches here in town. They were the integral pieces of you know, I guess our life here. When you say, Jack, everybody went to church because there wasn't nothing else to do. I'm just saying. So we had some great churches here. Why don't you tell us about a few of them and just a quick comment about that?
Bethel and Mount Zion were here from 1828. They were here long before the town was here. And the first school was behind Mount Zion Church. And my grandmother and her brother used to walk down the tracks from my house to school. And they'd get so tired. She was a tiny little boy, and she'd have to carry him home. But Mount Zion started from the earliest days. That is where the actual carnival started, was a Civil War reunion at Mount Zion, as long as any of the Civil War veterans were still living. And
That's
then
when it moved to Legion Park, isn't it? Pretty
it was
close.
actually uptown in the field where it's Walgreens now, where Cashin's Grocery was. And there's a policeman on this board that was electrocuted, unhooking the power from the carnival
Yes.
There was a pump in the Virgin Spring that pumped water to the cotton mill.
I
And
think we just finally honored him, didn't we, Major? Yeah, just finally after all these years, a couple of years ago.
Ralph White was his name.
Yeah.
And there's another funny story. Jenny Lynn Mayhew told me one time her granddad would walk from, it's not, in the old days, it was Biggity Street instead of Meridian Street. And
Biggity. Where'd that come from, y'all?
her granddaddy would walk her to Mount Zion Church to Sunday school every Sunday. And they would go, there was one jail cell in town hall basement. And they would go by the town hall to see who was locked in the jail cell on Saturday morning. And it was always her granddaddy and Gurney Ursery. And my dad was a town policeman when they only had one policeman. And he said he just come back out of the Marines after World War II. And Mayor Sweet hired him to keep the peace, and he didn't even have a car. He just walked around downtown. And he said he had locked people up on Saturday night when they were drunk, and they let them out on Saturday morning when they sobered up. But when they were tearing down the old town hall, I took a bench down there and sat in that jail cell and took a 6-pack down there.
Well, tell them where the old town hall was.
Right across the street, right under the corner of the police department now. And the post office was right next door. There's a picture up here of David Robinson and Ann Knox in the post office. And the old town hall, you had to stand in line out on the sidewalk to get in to vote. And they would only let 10 people in at a time. So if it was raining,
Like COVID, right?
yeah, it was a trip. What?
Your art collection.
Oh, the art, when the monument was dedicated on 11/11/11, the Veterans Monument, the Art Center printed about 200 or 300 pictures like this. And they sat at Town Hall for a long time. It was up in a display at the Art Center for 2 weeks. And they were in a room at Town Hall for years. And then because of Woody and some of the commissioners, they had a room at Town Hall designated to put them all in. And it's still right there beside where you go in to vote.
It's about as big as 2 of these tables.
Yeah,
By the way.
it's pretty small.
Pretty small.
But
So,
there's,
so circling back to the churches, just to wrap that up, many of you may not know this, but the beginnings of Grace Covenant Church started right up here beside of Jack's house, right?
it's a tabernacle, yeah.
Yeah, that was called the Cornelius Tabernacle, started by the Clantons, and fine people. And that was the beginnings. They finally moved out to where their site is now, and as you know, have grown and grown and grown. So quite a witness by Grace Covenant. We also have a Baptist church in town, right? Right, Pastor David? We do, and it's been there. When was that founded? 1904, right before the town was founded, actually. So it's been around and contributed a lot. Cornelius Presbyterian, we talked about a minute ago, just foundations of our town, and a lot of good things work their way through those churches. That's where folks gathered, and some were big, some were small, but they were the heart of our community back in the day. Now, I want to move us on to the idea, because I don't know if y'all like this or not. I think you will, but how do we preserve all this? Of this effort, in my opinion. There's no question about it, because I don't even think a town update, I don't know, several weeks ago out at Bailey's Glen. And some lady walked up to me and she said, we just moved here from South Charlotte and moved to Bailey's Glen. And we want to know the history of this place. Where can I go to find that out? And I said, well, yeah, there's a couple of books maybe you can read or, but there's nowhere you can go and really touch and feel the history of our town and maybe even hear recordings of Jack Connor's voice telling the story. Wouldn't that be cool? So, we're all mortal beings, and I wish my grandmother was here. She could compliment these stories, and I wish Susie's mother and grandmother were here to tell those wonderful stories. They're rich and wonderful. They really are. This was a great community from the very beginning, and I don't know how y'all feel about that. Is that something that's important to you? Okay. So Jack, how you feel about it? You think that's something we should do here? Are you in?
Yeah, I've wanted, that was one of my goals all along is make sure that none of the old timers are forgotten or the history isn't forgotten. So I keep this small book right here. I made it a little heavy so nobody could steal it, but it stays at Old Town Public House all the time. And so newcomers can look at it or longtime residents can look at it. And if that's not enough pictures, if you come by my house, I've got about
He's got about 50,000 more.
30 or 40 of these books. So, plus
Yeah.
my house is covered from floor to ceiling with pictures in every room in the whole house.
So Maylin, tell me, don't let us run over. Tell me when okay, we got 7 minutes. So we do have I know one person I did not call on that I want to call on is Ron Potts. So Ron, tell us what it was like growing up here, sir.
Well, one of my earliest memories, my dad owned or worked in a barber shop. The original barber shop was along the railroad track. And all of us boys, his sons, used to shine shoes there. And so that's one of my recollections. And in
That's
the
his
back
building.
of the barber shop was a pool hall. Did he allow you in there? He never allowed me to go in there. So, but that's one of the memories I have is working at that barber shop. And of course, coming here to the Star and on Saturdays, going upstairs where all the black folks sat and watching cowboy movies. So every Saturday.
That's about all they showed here, wasn't it?
Somewhere I'll find
Cowboy
it.
movies. Yeah.
That's what was the cost of the tractor essentially.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, Dale, how much did it cost to get in the movies? Didn't you say a quarter?
Quarter.
15? Yeah. Quarter, okay. We'll see. I'm not sure. Michelle? Yes, ma'am. Good question. I don't remember. I don't know the answer. When did the train stop running, Jack?
My grandmother used to complain about putting clothes on the line and the train going by blowing smoke up and getting the clothes all dirty when she had just washed them. But the train went to Mooresville. I still remember the depot was right across the street here at where the parking
In the
ride
parking
lot
lot.
is. And you could ride a train to Mooresville for 30 cents or something like that, or to Charlotte, either way. But Ewan's drugstore had a bench in front of it you could sit on and catch a Greyhound bus to Charlotte or to Mooresville. So, but the trains, they ran a few times a week to Mooresville for years, and a truck hit the underpass down here and cracked it real bad. And a few years ago, and that hadn't been repaired, and the engine can't go across that trestle anymore. So when that happened, they tore the tracks up right up here, so nothing could pass on that trestle up there, because it would probably cave in if they did. But my grandmother used to say they took a train to where was the children's home up above Troutman?
Barron Springs.
Barham Springs. They took a excursion, Barham Springs and back on Sunday on the train to just have a place to go. But they took their horse and buggy that they rented next door where the old Star Theater was at the Liberty Stable. Went
It was
to,
right next door.
yeah, went to Egg Rock to, that's where they went to court and have a picnic in a horse and buggy. So
Yes, ma'am, Sarah. We do, and Andrea Wayne can probably address that better than me because I'll forget one. Yeah, Jess. Yeah, Jess is the expert. There you go.
All right. Yeah, we actually have 8 official designated landmarks, which we have to work with Mecklenburg County to make those designations. But for a home or a property to be considered for designation, it has to fit a few criteria items. One is that it's constructed 50 years ago or more. Most of them have to have some architectural significance or something that hasn't been altered on the outside or the exterior, that where you can definitely still tell that was original. And a lot of times if they have a cultural significance, like a story to tell, Abigail's here. She lives in one of the homes and she got it designated when her and Randolph bought that home. That's the Mount Zion Parsonage home on 115. So next time you're on your way to Huntersville, look over to the right. I think it's like a green color. Is it green? And so most of the homes also have a plaque on the front, like the Fiddler House is another example where the School of Rock is now. We all know that home. We just designated Potts Barbershop a couple months ago. We had a ceremony in February. Susan Irvin's Law Office is another home that's right here on Zion Street. Y'all could go on and see that one. Yes, the Cornelius Ag Building, which we haven't had a ceremony for. You'll hear about that. So on Cornelius Elementary School, there's a small brick building that kind of sets back, and that was made constructed during the New Deal, and it was for agricultural specific programming for children. And I'm trying to think, the Rosenwald School in Smithville. So that was another schoolhouse that we had designated a long time ago. What's the last one? I can't remember. Down Smith Road. Okay. Well, there's on the website, there's a map of all these too. So you guys can go to cornelius.org and look at committees, Historic Preservation Committee, and you'll be able to see a map of the homes, that the landmarks, as well as some other information. We have links to some of these stories. We have links to some of Jack's pictures. We also have 3 walking tours, which they could be self-guided if you printed out the map, and we do some of events through the year where we actually host a walking tour. So just check your newspapers and your newsletters to find out how to join in on that. And if anyone is interested in learning more about preserving or designated their home as a landmark, just send a message through the website to, I guess, Becky, yeah, at Town of Cornelius at cornelius.org, and we'll get you through the process of learning about designating your house as a landmark. One of the perks is you get a 50% tax break. So, I know that the taxes are raising. So if it's something that you're already interested in and you want to save some money and you have like a passion to preserve, I would recommend doing that. The Gem Yarn Mill, the Oak Street Mill. As far as I know, there's no plans to change it, demolish it there, that is, but I rent 4 units there. I have 4 businesses there, so I'm pretty in the know with the landlord, but I think there might be they want to renovate in the future, so they might be waiting to do any preservation. And you can, preservation happens on either a county level, a state, or a national. So here in Cornelius, we work directly with Mecklenburg County when we do our landmark designations, but there are additional protections that could happen at the state and national level. So. Oh yeah, well, in 2 days from now, the Taba Walk Arts and Music Festival is happening here in Old Town. It's going to be all over Town Hall, Oak Street Mill. It's like if you guys have lived here for any amount of time, I'm sure you went to one. This is our 10th year. So this is the 20th Taba Walk. We've got a whole lot of fun stuff planned. I don't know where you're going to park, but just find somewhere and walk on down. So thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Jess. Very good job. Well, Jack, you got a 30-second wrap up for us tonight? Anything
Uh,
else you want to add?
I just want to say, I told all the old people that have lived here that I visited and all the ones that, I wish I had started doing this when my grandmother was still around because she was born in 1899 and could have answered any of these questions off the top of the head that I have now that I didn't know to ask when she was here, but all the old ones I visited, I promised them they wouldn't be forgotten. So that's how I hope we can make that happen. Thank
Yeah,
you.
she was a peer of my grandmother who was born in 1903. So, boy, there were some matriarchs out there, and if we just had them back just for an hour, right? We could get some questions answered for sure. But let's give Jack a big old round of applause. Thank you so much. Jack. More to come on the Cornelius History Museum. So stand by, folks. And thank you for being with us. Thanks for all of you guys that's out there online. I hope you hung with us tonight. It's been a rich experience for me. When you're native of this town, times like this mean a lot to us, don't it, Jack? We don't get this opportunity to talk about our past very often. So it's a thrill for me to do that. Thrill for me to be here with you. And if you have any questions, we'll hang around for a few minutes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, commissioners, for being here and staff. Appreciate it. Good night.